Welcome back to Hackin the Hackzone. In this video series, we're taking you behind the scenes of some of the coolest demos and hacks showcased at our CreatorCon events worldwide. Now, in our last episode, we took a close look at the hardware behind our resident bartender, Liquorbot, thanks to some insights from Jason McKee. Now it's time to uncover the software side of the Liquorbot and show how ServiceNow powers every pour that this bot makes. I'm Kristy, and today we're diving into the evolution of Liquorbot software. But first, in case you missed our last episode and are wondering, what the heck is this Liquorbot that you speak of? Well, Liquorbot is a robot bartender that's built on the ServiceNow platform. It uses things like a portal to serve up a menu, an integration hub spoke to communicate with the robot, and a whole host of other things that we're going to dive into today that bring the Liquorbot to life. First up, let's talk about the Liquorbot ServiceNow app. This is a custom app built using App Engine, and it is the core of the Liquorbot. The app contains several interconnected tables that form the backbone of our Liquorbot app, including tables for tracking drink orders as they come in, storing our extensive collection of drink recipes, managing our inventory of ingredients, and maintaining detailed recipe-ingredient relationships that specify all the exact measurements and proportions for every single drink. So now that we have a good grasp on the data, let's move on to the user experience. Our latest iteration, we've given Liquorbot a facelift with a custom UI built all in UI Builder. As you can see here, it's a menu that looks a bit more like a drink menu at a restaurant. So I can see all the cocktails I have here available that are a mixture of spirits and different mixers. If I scroll down at the bottom, I can easily see the mocktails. So now I don't have to dig through the whole menu to find the mocktail in the sea of cocktails. If I come back up, the other thing that's available here on my menu is this pumps item. So if I click on pumps, I'm going to see a visual representation of all the different pumps that are connected to my Liquorbot. Here is really easy for me to say, it looks like this cola is a little low, so I can come in and refill the cola. So now I can say I have 64 ounces of cola. I hit refill, and I get a nice little confirmation that we've refilled that cola, and there it is. We do, however, still have one challenge to overcome. Currently, when an ingredient is changed, it triggers a number of events, and that number for an individual ingredient change is in the neighborhood of around 55,000, which directly correlates to the number of recipe ingredients that we have in our recipe ingredient table. And that's all triggered by this business rule here called update mixability. You see that it gets triggered after an ingredient changes on insert and update on our dispenser record. If we look at advanced, we see that it looks at our script include and triggers one thing called mixability. It does set mixability on the current and on the previous ingredient, because if we're removing an ingredient from the particular menu that we have, we want to make sure that we take it out, or all the beverages that require that particular beverage or that particular mixer are removed from our menu. So that's why you see this running here twice on set mixability on the current and on the previous. Now, if we look at the particular script include for Liquorbot Utils, which I've got over here, and I've already gotten to our set mixability function, we're going through every single recipe in our menu that is complete. We're looking at all the recipe ingredients. So this is where our 55,000 comes from. And for every single one of those recipes, we are sending that this particular event or creating this particular event called a Liquorbot ingredient change. And then we're going through a second pass with all the substitute values. If we go look at that particular script action or that event, what we're going to see happen is there's our event, and this is the script action that's being triggered whenever that event occurs. So we're going through every single recipe ingredient for every single recipe that's complete, making sure that's not a garnish, because obviously we can't dispense a garnish from the Liquorbot. And then we're going through every single recipe ingredient, and we're going through and checking to see if it's still available and if I can still mix this particular drink. And then we're updating the mixability and then updating our particular record. So this is what happens when we make one single ingredient change. You multiply this particular action times 8 or 16 we're talking 800 and something thousand events every time we change a menu, which you can imagine takes a little bit of time to refactor and get our menu situated again. So we're in the process of finding a more efficient ways of handling those types of changes and potentially refactoring our list of recipes, but we're definitely open to ideas here. All right, now that we've checked out our new UI, let me show you what's under the hood. We're gonna walk through how we put all of the pieces together in UI Builder and how UI Builder works its magic to create this improved experience. So here I've opened up Liquorbot in UI Builder. Our main pages that we're dealing with the Liquorbot UI here is the Liquorbot menu and the Liquorbot configuration page. So let's take a look at the configuration page first. So the components that we're using here in UI Builder, there's a few of them. Our modals here do a few different things. One, we have our drink information modal. So this is refreshed every time I click on an item in my menu. So my modal has got a nice image here that is pulling from the image source of the actual recipe based on the type of glass that is selected for that particular beverage. So that's being pulled in via a script. So we can see what that looks like. If it's a cocktail glass, shot glass, rocks glass, that's what we have available here from an SVG perspective. So that's what the scripts in UI Builder look like. We also have a label value stack. This is an out-of-the-box component that we just feed into some different items, and it returns a nice JSON object that formats in the label value. And then we have our ingredients. So this is looking at our recipe ingredients table, and it is a repeater here that is showing all of our ingredients for our recipe along with the photo of the particular ingredient. If I look at the ordering modal, this is where we're showing the status of the particular order itself. This has got an uh-oh because I don't have anything connected here, but this would show basically either your success or failure of the actual order when you order the particular drink from the Liquorbot. If we continue moving down to look at what the actual menu or how the actual menu is built, I'm going to minimize this modal section to save some space. If I look at the body, I see I have my request or chat pop over. That's because we have a virtual agent that's actually enabled here. So we will have a nice little chat bot. If you come to a future knowledge event, hopefully that will be a Now Assist skill kit skill that is doing some suggestions of drinks. So be on the lookout for that. But otherwise on our menu, we've got, again, more repeaters. So I have a cocktail container, I have a mocktail container, and a shots container. So if you look at the menu from Liquorbot, we'll look at that in just a minute. You'll see those particular containers that are separating out our different types of beverages on our menu. In those containers, we have a heading, that's our cocktail heading here. We have an image, that's that nice little SVG image here that says cocktails. And then again, we're using a repeater. So this is our cocktails repeater. We have our container, which is our card-based container. And then we are putting our text for our different beverages here as a header. And then we have the ingredients that are being pulled from the recipe itself. So there's our data element that we're using for each one of those as well. If I look at this particular repeater, you'll see that I'm not looking directly at a data resource that we generally use for repeaters. I actually have a script here to do this. And this is because I didn't want to necessarily query the database every single time for all of the different recipes that we had. I wanted to use one data resource for mixable recipes and then filter that data. So I'm using a nice little filter here for the data that I'm getting back from my mixable recipes data resource. And then you'll see that I'm just filtering out all the ones that are of the category cocktail or ordinary drink, because we have some different data in here. Some of them are categorized as ordinary drink, some of them are cocktails. So we're combining the two of those. And I'm actually doing that for each one of these repeaters on the page. So there's the cocktails one. If I look at mocktails and what my repeater data looks like, I see everything that is non-alcoholic, and the same goes for shots as well. If I look at my shots repeater, it's all the same. So we're just filtering that one single data resource every time we're looking at the different components or different repeaters on the page itself. Let's see, we can look a little bit at the data resources that we have here. Don't judge me on my lack of naming. I have lookup record 1. I know somebody's going to say something about that. If I look at the mixable recipes, we'll see that we have mixable recipes. This is the data resource that we're filtering for all those repeaters we looked at earlier. So if we look at a preview of our data, we'll see all the different ingredients or all the different recipes that are mixable, along with their ingredients and their category, which is what we're filtering off of for each one of those repeaters on my menu. And then we have a couple more data resources here that are doing things outside of just pulling in data to the application. We're doing things like also vending the drink. So this particular transform is actually calling the vend action that we have for our Liquorbot spoke that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So you can see the events here. We're executing a client script when it's succeeded so that we can return back the status. And if it's failed, we're doing the same. We do have some client state parameters that we're using to update those and keep them updated. We also have a few client scripts that we're looking at here. So setting the drink ID for the modal. So this is what we're using to update the modal when we click on a new modal. Here's our vend drink. But that's actually not being used, it looks like. So there's no associated components. And you'll see there are some other things here. Oh, evaluate vend state. So this is returning our state back to our particular modal itself. And I think those are basically the ones that we're most concerned with on this particular experience. So now that we've kind of dug deep into what the UI builder experience or how it was built, let's look at what it actually looks like. So I could click on preview this variant. Honestly, like this is okay, but I like to be able to see this in the actual browser window itself. So I just clicked on preview. It's opening up here. I can also click on open URL path and that will open up right here in my browser window and I can look at what that looks like. So there's my cocktails menu. If I click on Aloha screwdriver, we'll see there's a little bit of a delay updating that label at the top, but otherwise I can see my category, my glass, my instructions, and all the photos of my different ingredients. And then I can click on make it, but I'm not going to do that because I do not have a working Liquorbot associated with this instance right now. So we're going to go ahead and click on never mind. And there you have it. That is how the Liquorbot portal was built using UI Builder. Well, I think that just about covers Liquorbot from a UI and data structure side. Now let's move on to my personal favorite topic, integrations. Now, in part 1 of our video series, Jason mentioned that we use a Raspberry Pi to communicate with the Liquorbot. That is true for both the previous versions of the Liquorbot and the newest version as well. On that Raspberry Pi, we're running a couple different pieces of software. A mid server, of course, and that facilitates our communication between the Liquorbot and the platform, and one other piece of software called Klipper. Now, Klipper is a type of software that generally runs on small computers like Raspberry Pis, and it's often used to control machines like 3D printers. And since the Liquorbot is now running on a 3D printer controller board, it was the perfect solution for a drop-in upgrade from our Node-RED flow. In the case of Liquorbot, Klipper helps us control the pumps, the LEDs, and all the timing for mixing all those drinks with precision. And of course, on top of that, we've created a Klipper spoke in ServiceNow. And with this spoke, we've created actions reusing all of the original functions that live in script includes and bring Liquorbot's abilities to new users in ways that are accessible and user-friendly. To show you kind of what this spoke looks like that we built for Liquorbot, I'm here in Workflow Studio, and in Workflow Studio, I've filtered all of my actions by application Liquorbot, which means this is all part of our Liquorbot spoke. So we have several actions in our Liquorbot spoke. Let's not jump right into Klipper. Let's actually go back and look at Node-RED. I did mention that we moved our flow from Node-RED over to Klipper because now we're using that 3D printer controller board. So I want to show you kind of how that works with Node-RED first, and then we'll jump over to our Klipper action as well. So if I open up this Node-RED action, this is going to be that vend action that we saw in UI Builder. That it's getting triggered whenever I say I want to order a drink. So I can come in to my action here And I see that I have several steps in this particular action. So I have an input of my recipe, and it's referring directly to a recipe record. I verify that it absolutely can be made. So it's mixable, it's complete, and it is the right SysID. So I want to make sure that I'm verifying the right one because we do have some duplications in names. So I didn't want to necessarily use the name to match that up. Next, we gather up all of our recipe ingredients. So I'm creating the recipe ingredients table. I'm then doing some conversion methods here. Now, a lot of this actually lives in the script include, and this particular iteration of this spoke didn't do the best job at pulling out the information or the functions in the script includes to put them into the action. That's something else that we're going to do a bit of refactoring. But ideally, what this would be doing would be calling the function directly rather than recreating the script here inside of the action. So I go through a couple more steps. One is my conversion. Another one is building my form body. So this goes through a number of steps here too to make sure that I can dispense and I have all the different ingredients ready. And then finally, I send my order to the Node-RED flow on my Raspberry Pi. So you'll notice this is running on localhost 1880. That's because the Raspberry Pi, it's still running locally on that Raspberry Pi. We're not reaching out to another system outside of that Pi. So it's all set to localhost. It's a really simple REST API request. And we have a URL encoded content that we're looking at here. So if we just expand that, really simple, we're sending our form data. So that's what we're doing when we're building that body. We're essentially building our payload along with a few other things. Also not best practice. We're building that form body for our REST API step to actually submit the order to our Node-RED flow. Then we're coming through, we're updating our volumes for our various ingredients. And then we're creating our order history record, assuming that everything went well. We are putting all of that here so we know what happened. If there was an error, we throw that into the order history record as well. All right, so now that we took a look at our Node-RED action that we have in our Liquorbot spoke, let's look at the new one for Klipper. Now, this is the one we're using for all of the new implementation of the Liquorbot. So we're no longer using that Node-RED flow. I just thought I would show you that to show you what we've migrated from and what we've migrated to. But if you look at this particular step, you'll notice it's not a heck of a lot different. We're not doing a whole lot of different things here. We're going through the same steps of verifying the recipe can be vended. We're going through all the conversions. The difference here is instead of building that payload, we're actually building script params. And these are actually query parameters that we're sending to the REST step in step number 5. So the script param starts as dispense. You'll see here's an example of what we're actually formulating. So we have dispense. P1 is for pump 1, P2 is for pump 2, P3, you guessed it, pump 3. And as I go through here and I have ingredients, we're just building that string out. So script params, we're concatenating P and then the number of the dispenser equals and then the number of ounces. So this is how we're actually sending our data to Klipper to dispense the appropriate amount of the liquid that is in that particular bottle. If I go to step number 5, which is the order step, you'll see here that very similarly as to before, all of our APIs live on localhost because we are only calling locally to the Raspberry Pi. We're not calling out anywhere. In this case, we're saying it's a specific mid server. The reason we're doing this here is because we do have plans to be able to support multiple Liquorbots on a single instance. So we do have some logic in here to select the appropriate mid server. We might in the future be able to do something with capabilities, but right now this is all script based to select that mid server. We have our resource path of script. So we have our endpoint here, which is localhost printer G code. Then our resource path is script. And here is where we are sending that query parameter of script with P1 and so on. And that's the only difference. Then it goes through all the same steps that it did with the Node-RED flow as well. And finally, of course, we're creating our order history. Now, if I want to look at some of these other particular actions in the Liquorbot, just to touch on them for a minute, these unload and prime, we added these actions here so that we could do things like priming the machine directly from the UI. So you'll see a button on the UI builder portal that says unload or prime or clean. Those are all calling these particular actions here. So if I look at unload, pretty straightforward here as well. It's just a simple REST step, same endpoint because we're interacting with Klipper still, and the script is literally just unload. So we're doing that on each of those actions. One could say we might be able to do that all in one and just have an input of what type of activity we want to call and have those be more dynamic. But right now, they're all their own specific actions within the particular spoke itself. So some of these other actions are actually tied to an integration that we have with something called CocktailDB. CocktailDB just gives us some details about some recipes. It gives us photos. So if I look at get ingredients details, we will see that it's going to go out and ta-da, there we go. We have our ingredient name. So if it's vodka, let's say our rest step goes out to CocktailDB and it goes out and it gets our ingredient name and it returns us some data about that particular ingredient. So we get things like the ID, the description, whether it's an alcoholic mixer or not, the ABV, and we also get the image URL that we're using to populate our ingredient database. So if you want to build your own Liquorbot, there's a spoke for that. Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Liquorbot software. But if you're scratching your head about anything we didn't cover, or you just want to know more about our robot bartender buddy, hit us up in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed watching me geek out about robot bartenders and ServiceNow development, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the ServiceNow Developer Program channel. We've got a ton more Hackin the Hackzone content coming your way. Until next time, keep innovating, keep building, and maybe mix yourself a Liquorbot approved cocktail. This is Kristy, signing off from the Hackin the Hackzone. Cheers.